Describe the scene you walked into.
She had a significant head trauma. There was blood all over the floor.
It didn't make sense. If it was some kind of home invasion robbery that went sideways.
The community was shocked.
How would you know even where to begin?
When you have somebody that's killed in a relationship, we always look at the partner first.
We have a killer on the loose. Everybody responds. It's all hands on deck, leaving no stone unturned.
Somebody obviously wanted her dead.
He began to express more about maybe having an alternative lifestyle, maybe having extra partners in their relationship.
The husband's best friend took an unexpected trip to Florida. Now we have something. We're now looking not only at a murder, we're looking at conspiracy to commit murder.
Hi, I'm Nancy O'Dell. Today's Crime Exposé takes us to Bonita Springs, Florida, where a woman was found dead in her home, the victim of a vicious slaughter. Police wondered if an intruder planning to rob the home had killed the woman. But when police looked closer at the horrific crime, there were signs that her high-profile career may have led to the murder. The trail was long and winding before police finally discovered who the real killer was. One evening, a man called police to report that his next-door neighbor, 46-year-old Teresa Sievers, was dead on her kitchen floor.
911, what is your emergency?
I'm at a friend's house. He's out of town, and I came here to check on his wife, and she's dead on the floor.
The Lee County Sheriff's Office responded and found a horrific scene that shocked even the veteran homicide detectives.
It was very evident just from first glance that she had sustained significant head trauma. There was blood all over the floor. Even though it was significant trauma, a lot of the blood was contained mostly to Dr. Sievers' body and in her hair.
Based on the damage that was done to Dr. Sievers, we could tell that she did see who was coming at her.
The neighbor had been asked to check on Teresa by the woman's husband, Mark Sievers, who was out of town. Police examined the bloody crime scene, trying to understand what had occurred.
My initial assessment of the scene was that of a heinous crime. It was very evident that this was a violent altercation that took place with one or more assailants. You could kind of build your own idea of what may have occurred or how bad it was while it was occurring. This was very evident that this was very bad, and it went on for some time.
What did you observe around Dr. Sievers' body?
Aside from Dr. Sievers' body, and aside from the blood transfers, smears, etc., there was a bloody hammer laying on the floor. Her wallet was also on the floor. The credit cards and her license appeared to be thumbed through as if somebody were looking through it.
Police looked for clues as to how an intruder might have gotten into the home. What did you think had happened?
As we studied the crime scene further, we noticed that there appeared to have been forced entry through the garage door. Did somebody break in, or is this a part of staging the crime scene? Looking around the house, it wasn't in a state of disarray, but it wasn't really indicative of somebody who had rushed into the house and started ripping drawers apart and things of that nature.
Looking through the entire house, it didn't make sense. If it was some kind of home invasion robbery that went sideways, it didn't really seem like anything was missing. There was a side door, and it looked like it was pried, but it never looked like the locking mechanism was defeated. So it made me wonder if somebody staged that to look like, oh, they broke in and this is what happened.
While looking through their home, police made a startling discovery. It was hard to fathom that a robber would have overlooked valuables and cash.
None of Dr. Sievers' valuables were missing that we knew of. Normally, in a robbery or burglary type situation, somebody's breaking in to take things. Her wallet's left at the scene. None of the credit cards are missing. Later on, in conducting the search warrant, we would find large amounts of currency, $40,000. which also leads us to believe that somebody is there for another reason.
There was little about the crime scene that pointed to what had occurred or who was involved. It was a mystery that would only grow deeper. Did police have any gut reactions or suspicions from the beginning?
This could be a home invasion gone bad, a burglary that you walked into that went bad, a love triangle situation. There's infinite possibilities from the inception of any investigation. My personal opinion at the time, looking at the wallet, I did consider what we would call staging, where an assailant will stage a crime scene to make it appear as if it's something that it's not.
Investigators immediately contacted Mark Sievers to deliver the news of his wife's death. Mark and the children were in Connecticut when they got the dreaded call from police. What did Mark Sievers tell you?
He was at his mother-in-law's that past weekend with his wife and his 2 daughters celebrating her birthday. He was in shock of what occurred because it didn't make sense, and how, I wish I came back, that kind of thing.
Teresa, a medical doctor, had flown home early so she could meet with patients the next day. Mark's absence at the time of his wife's murder immediately raised questions. So why did his absence raise flags?
They're out of state, and this is a family. Usually family units travel together. But in the world of homicide, you have to ask yourself, when a husband sends his wife home on a flight and then she's bludgeoned to death, it gives rise for concern. And that is something that you need to consider from the get-go.
When you have somebody that's killed in a relationship, we always look at the partner first. So that's where we start. Mark Sievers had the best alibi you could have. He was physically in another state when whatever transpired, which also seemed really suspicious when you started looking at all the details.
At first glance, Mark Sievers' explanation for asking the neighbor to check on his wife seemed plausible.
Teresa Sievers returned earlier from a business trip, allegedly, so that she could go to work while the family was still on vacation. Mark Sievers, he had been trying to get a hold of his wife, Teresa, and he was growing concerned for her safety. So he asked Mr. Petritus to respond to the residence.
Police finished processing the crime scene and awaited the results of an autopsy. They hoped that the medical examiner might be able to shed some light on the murder. A killer was walking free while the grieving Sievers family buried Teresa. Police would go all out to find the person or persons responsible.
I knew that this was going to rock the community. I also knew when this poor woman was brutally murdered. And when you can't press a button and bring somebody back, you have to do everything in your power to make certain that you bring that killer to justice. We have a killer on the loose. Everybody responds. It's all hands on deck, leaving no stone unturned.
Lee County Sheriff's detectives investigating the grisly murder of Teresa Sievers had a baffling mystery on their hands. So far, there was little to go on. Someone had slaughtered the wife and mother of 2 at her own home, and it suggested the work of a homicidal maniac.
The community was shocked. There was a woman that was brutally murdered. Just a violent homicide. We have a killer on the loose. Everybody responds. It's all hands on deck, leaving no stone unturned.
Police hoped that her autopsy might reveal clues as to who did this, but it was hard to see beyond the carnage. Did the autopsy shed any light?
It was one of the worst things I've ever seen. There was so much damage done. I've been to many autopsies before that, but looking at what was done to her was upsetting. You disassociate because that's your job. You need to maintain your focus so you don't miss any details. You have that flash through your brain, and you refocus and you compartmentalize and say, whoever did this, we have to find them.
Somebody obviously wanted her dead, and that's one of the things we consider. Is this somebody close to her? Is this somebody who has a bone to pick with her, that is holding a grudge for one reason or another?
As police hypothesized what had led to Teresa Sievers' death, a study of the victim helped focus the investigation. Teresa Sievers was a high-profile doctor of alternative medicine with a thriving practice. She had attained somewhat of a celebrity status, but not everyone was a fan of Dr. Sievers' methods.
Based on Dr. Sievers' profile, she was very active in the community. She challenged traditional medicine by also involving a holistic approach. And around that time, there were other holistic / internal medicine doctors that were allegedly killed, which we had to research. So the suspect pool dramatically increased, and she was a force to be reckoned with at work. And she told people exactly how she felt, and sometimes she offended people because she was a straight shooter.
While some detectives looked for a possible vendetta against Teresa, others dug deeper into the Sievers marriage, and they discovered it wasn't a happy home.
In looking into the Sievers marriage and the history it was evident that they were experiencing issues. Everybody that you spoke to said that they would fight consistently. They appeared to be heated more than not. When you talk about Dr. Sievers, she came off as, for lack of better terminology, it's kind of like a firecracker. So now you throw the marital conflict into the mix, and you're just going to have butting heads, and that's consistently what we saw throughout the investigation.
Just talking to Mark Sievers himself, I said, listen, we need to know everything. And he began to express more about maybe having an alternative lifestyle, maybe having extra partners in their relationship. Wow, our suspect pool just got even bigger because it could be a scorned person that they were intimate with.
As the investigation unfolds, we quickly learn that her marriage is very rocky. Phones give us a lot of intelligence as to their marriage might not just be a closed type of marriage, and we were just looking for just something, some type of information, a clue, something that could bring us over the edge.
Various angles and suspects were looked at, but they all came up empty. Then, 10 days after the murder of Teresa Sievers, Lee County detectives got the break of all breaks. A witness had overheard a conversation about a husband who recently returned from the Sunshine State, where a doctor had been murdered. So what was it that the witness told police about her friend's husband?
Somebody called us and said, I have a friend who wants to remain anonymous right now. She told us Curtis Wainwright took this last-minute trip to Bonita Springs, Florida.
How far in advance did you know that he was going to Florida? Did he tell you like last minute, or did he tell you ahead of time?
It was like last minute thing. I think it was Friday whenever he got home.
Oh, he told you that he was leaving?
Yeah. He
Okay.
said that Wayne had asked him to go with him to Florida to make money.
The wife of one of our later suspects complaining that her husband had left unexpectedly and in short notice to go on a trip to Florida. As we looked into this further, this person, who would be Curtis Wright, wound up being the best friend to Mark Sievers. We have a husband out of state, we have marital issues, we have a wife that returns alone, is brutally murdered that night, and now we find out that the husband's best friend took an unexpected trip to Florida. Now we have something.
Detectives directed all their efforts towards Curtis Wright and his communications with Mark Sievers, Teresa's husband. They quickly learned that Mark was a career criminal who had done time, and their next discovery would be the vehicle that transported the potential hitman on an assignment to the Sievers' home.
We seized a vehicle and a GPS that was in the car. You couldn't hope for a stronger case.
Investigators had identified a relationship between Teresa Sievers' husband and an ex-con named Curtis Wright. Police intercepted Wright and told him that he was a suspect in the murder, which he denied. But a digital footprint had left a trail of breadcrumbs for police. So what was it that you learned about Curtis Wright?
We did a search warrant on Curtis Wright's home. We seized a vehicle and a GPS that was in the car. Analyzing that GPS, our digital forensics unit, they were able to go through, find little breadcrumb trail from Missouri all the way down to Florida during the time frame that we were looking about. And we did. We found different places where it literally showed them together. You couldn't hope for a stronger case.
Police learned that Wright was joined on the trip by Jimmy Ray Rogers, who also had done time. Using the GPS data from Wright's car, police tracked the two men to the Bonita Springs area, near the Siever home the day before the murder.
And we just fall in Florida. We find out that they stop at a Walmart. So our next step is to get the video, and clear as day, walking into the Walmart together, just before Dr. Sievers is murdered, is Jimmy Ray Rogers and Curtis Wayne Wright. There's definitely more to this. So at this point in the investigation, there has to be some kind of monetary reward for this. Essentially, you're being paid to commit this offense.
Meanwhile, detectives subpoenaed the phone records of Wright, his shady friend Rogers, and Mark Sievers. They discovered a web of contact between Mark and Mr. Wright that abruptly ended after the murder. So you have the GPS from the car, the phone records, and the video. What do they all mean to the investigation?
We're now looking not only at a murder, we're looking at conspiracy to commit murder. We're now looking at the potential of Mark Sievers as a puppet master in this whole thing. We know he's involved at this point, but we need to prove it.
Police also learned that Teresa had over $4 million in life insurance that her husband would inherit upon her death. As police's interest in Mark intensified, he stopped cooperating and lawyered up. But the final piece of the puzzle came when police charged Curtis Wright and Jimmy Ray Rogers with second-degree murder. Wright made a deal and agreed to testify against Mark Sievers in the murder-for-hire plot.
I think he felt let down by Mark Sievers. Now, they're supposed to be best friends. They describe each other as brothers. And then he left his buddy out to dry, and he's out living his life. So I think the combination of those three things really drove Curtis Wright to come forward and become a witness for the state.
Mark's personal phone showed us his call log history, his text history, and then suddenly there's an absence of how you daily contact your friend, but during the time frame of when the crime occurred, stop talking to them. That was very telling also, which further solidified in my mind that you made this happen.
Months later, Mark Sievers was charged with the first-degree murder of his wife, Teresa. Police had a mountain of evidence against all three men, and the oldest motive in the world, money.
Curtis Wayne Wright, Jeremy Rogers with Mark Sievers, so we have all three of them.
Curtis Wright took a plea deal and testified against Jimmy Ray Rogers, who struck Teresa 17 times and killed her. And he also testified against her husband Mark, who directed the murder-for-hire plot. Wright received a 25-year sentence, while Rogers was sentenced to life in prison. And Mark Sievers, who arranged the horrific murder of his wife and the mother of their 2 children, received a death sentence. Today, he sits on Florida's death row. And now, it's time for today's Safety Spotlight. In the tragic case of Dr. Teresa Sievers, it was evident that she was caught off guard by her attacker. And while no advice can assure you will be safe 100% of the time, here are a few tips that could help prioritize your safety. An alarm system in your home or apartment can act as a deterrent and provide an additional layer of security. If possible, consider enhancing the lighting in and around your home for greater awareness and visibility. Consider smart locks for added security, and consider reinforcing your doors and window frames to prevent entry by an intruder. And if you are violently confronted, your priority should be to escape, not to engage in a physical altercation. Put as much distance between yourself and the attacker as possible. And if you can, consider carrying a personal alarm that can emit a loud sound to attract attention and deter an attacker. And since every case is unique, you can learn more about avoiding these risks by reading the book The Gift of Fear by Gavin DeBecker, the nation's leading expert on personal safety. I'm Nancy O'Dell. For all of us here at Crime Exposé, please join us next time and stay safe.